We did Buran Ghati and Rupin Pass back to back in 2 weeks to answer one single question on which trek should you go for. Both these treks are located in close proximity to each other in Himachal Pradesh. They cross an altitude of 15,000 feet and it takes over 1 week to complete either of these. In this video, we'll be covering 10 different comparison points to help you decide on which trek is better for you. So let's get started. The first point of comparison is the road journey. The route for both the treks is more or less the same. While going to the base camp, we arrive at Rohdu for both the treks, but for Rupin Pass, the road diverts towards Chanchal Pass. And the drive through this pass is an epic one, and this makes the entire difference. You have essentially done one pass even before your trek started. The return journey to Shimla is the same route for both the treks, but the Chanchal Pass drive helps win this point in favor of Rupin Pass trek. Second up is the level of adventure in each of the trek. The Rupin Pass trek has plenty of varied terrain. However, the steep ascent to the Buran Ghati Pass and the vertical rappel down the pass is one technical element that is not there in the Rupin Pass trek. This thrill-packed moment of rappelling down the Buran Ghati Pass makes the adventurous tag tilt in favor of Buran Ghati trek. Third on a comparison list is the level of risk that each of these treks exhibit. Rupin Pass is notorious for rockfall zones, a steep gully, and unstable snow bridges. And while we have a vertical ice wall in Buran Ghati, it's a controlled rappel and the risk is minimized with the usage of right equipment to descend down the pass. We ourselves saw two occasions of rockfall during the Rupin Pass traverse, and Buran Ghati, despite being a bit more adventurous, was still more safer in our experience. Fourth point on our comparison list is the maximum altitude for each of the trek. Buran Ghati sends tall at 4,575 meters, but Rupin Pass edges it out with 4,650 meters of altitude. Although the altitude difference is not much, still this point goes in favor of Rupin Pass trek. A greater part of the joy that comes during our treks is the fact that we get to camp at beautiful spots. This is the fifth point of comparison between the two treks, the best campsites. The Arathach meadow at Buran Ghati is astonishing in its own way. It's massive and beautiful at the same time. But when we talk about campsites, Rupin Pass never fails to astonish us. There are so many spots to camp across this trail that you will keep on longing to stay after every corner. The Lobo Waterfall campground with a dozen waterfalls surrounding it in itself helps win this point in favor of Rupin Pass trek. Next up is the forest sections that come across each of the trails. Rupin Pass has a dense pine as soon as we leave Jakha, and then we come across a forest full of pink rhododendrons. This campsite is called Buras Kandi. However, ahead of this, all the way till Sangla Kanda, we do not come across any other forest sections. Buran Ghati trek starts with a dense oak and pine forest and concludes in an equally beautiful silver birch and pine forest as we approach Manirang and finally Barua village. When it comes to forest sections, I am inclined to rule in favor of the Buran Ghati trek as being more beautiful. When we talk about landscapes and the overall views during our trek, both these treks have plenty to offer. The Chandranahan lake and the waterfall in itself make for a splendid sight. A lot of trekkers come to visit only these lakes and the waterfall. But when we talk about waterfalls, as I shared in my previous video on Rupin Pass, we might as well call it a trek of waterfalls. Furthermore, the Rati Fedi snowfield ahead of upper waterfall with glacial stream running across it is a fascinating sight. After crossing the pass, the landscape towards Sangla continues to astonish us, and all three of us who went across this journey were inclined to believe that Rupin Pass was more astonishing when it came to landscape views. Moving on to the 8th point, and a rather important one, is the presence of crowds on the trail. When it comes to absolute number of fixed departure for either of the trek, the numbers favor Rupin Pass. Overall, the trek has lesser fixed departure. Even though it might not translate to a big difference, but the real difference comes from the vastness of the campsites. The campsites in Rupin Pass are much spread out, which, despite the fact that a similar number of tents are pitched across the two treks, the route feels more emptier. At Buran Ghati, in the typical itinerary, people camp at Litham for 2 days, and when you have consecutive departures, the number of trekkers double down at the Litham campsite, making it feel very congested. The same is true for Dhunda, where you have less space and a lot of tents. Similar is the case at the Manerang camp in Buran Ghati Pass. This point definitely goes in favor of Rupin Pass. 9th but not the last on our list is the cost comparison. Most trek operators have very marginal difference between both the treks when it comes to the cost. So it's a clear tie when we compare the cost of the two treks. Which brings us to our last comparison point, which would be a better first trek. While there is no easy answer to this question, if you are someone who has not done any high altitude trek previously, Buran Ghati is your safe bet. It is less risky, it is less difficult when we compare it to the Rupin Pass trek. Only if you are a seasoned trekker and you want a beautiful trail to experience should you go for Rupin Pass. Otherwise, stick to Buran Ghati trek as a more suitable choice. To sum up the final score, it stands 5 in favor of Rupin and 4 in favor of Buran Ghati with 1 tie. But based on the information shared in this video, I hope you will be able to decide which trek is best for you. For me, this time it was doing both the treks simultaneously, one after another.